great. Um, as my grandfather from Big Spring, Texas would say, we're just gonna, it's same song, second verse here.
Okay.
We'll just talk about some of the same things we talked about before. So one of those things was that you publish pretty frequently, and the TV series has had a lot of success. You don't necessarily have to write for the TV series, but you have, and I wonder why you got involved in writing for TV as well.
Well, actually, I'm not a writer for the television show. I'm a consultant, is what I am.
Okay.
I think it was a pretty easy decision on their part, like that, because whenever Greer Shepard and John Coveney and Hunt Baldwin, the producers of the television show, whenever they got the idea that they wanted to do this, I think what in their mind is that they could go out and they could hire somebody that was going to be, an expert on northern Wyoming, or an expert on the Northern Cheyenne tribe, or sheriffing, or Wyoming in general, all these things, or they could just keep me, on the payroll like that, which would be a lot easier because I'd been writing about 7 of the books, I think, like that before they ever got in touch with me. So economically, it made a lot of sense. Like that. And then I understood the characters and all of that, pretty well. And so I think it was just a path of least resistance, I think, to just have me as a consultant on the show. And, and I'm not much help to them an awful lot of the time. I mean, whenever they were doing the first casting of Walt Longmire, they asked me, they said, well, do you ever think of actors, whenever you think about, the characters in your books? And I said, no, I don't. I've got friends and family and people I work with and all that. I use them as characters in my books. And they said, well, if you were to think of actors, for some of the characters in your books, like say Walt, who do you think of? And I said, well, Joel McCrea, Ben Johnson, Gary Cooper. And they said that was no help at all because all those guys had been dead for about 30, 40 years. And so I told them I wasn't going to be much use to them as far as that was concerned, like that. But where I can help them, obviously, is the mechanics of the writing. That's where I can help them. I'm a writer like that. And so, I know the way people talk here in Wyoming. I know that the way, the jargon that sheriffs use, when investigating a homicide and that type of thing. And so it makes it a lot easier for me to just kind of fact check little things as I go through the scripts. And so that's pretty much what my job is. And It's not that difficult. It really isn't. I mean, they have a whole room full of writers down there at Warner Brothers, and they all sit down and they all, put these ideas together for these different episodes, and then they send me, their finished product, and then I'll go through and line edit, and give them feedback on the stuff, and it's pretty nice. Generally, it's about a 50-50 split. 50% of the time they take my advice, 50% of the time they have reasons for doing what it is they want to do, how they want to do it, which is, perfectly fine. It's like any other business. You try and get in with the best people you possibly can, and then do the hard thing, which is leave them the hell alone. Let them do their job. And, I learned I had a valuable lesson very early on whenever they were first starting about, talking about doing the TV show. One of the first things they said to me was they were thinking about making Walt and Henry about 10 years younger, than they are in the books. And I had the horrible redneck cowboy author response where I was like, well, now why are we doing that? And they said, well, because we'd like the show to run for about 10 years. And we'd rather not have Walt and Henry on walkers, by the time we get to the end of the run. And so I had a hard time arguing with that. So.
Yeah. But you are totally in charge of the books, obviously. And as I said, you're pretty prolific with them. So what is your writing schedule like? You tour quite a bit too.
I do tour a lot like that. And, with with that success, the television show, there's a lot more opportunities like that to go and do a lot more public speaking, a lot more library events, a lot more literary festivals, that type of thing. And then the books are translated into about a dozen languages. And so I'm, on some bestsellers lists, in some foreign countries. And so I do a lot of touring, in Europe and places like that. But, in the final analysis, my life is that, I'm a rancher, in a small ranch, in northern Wyoming, where the nearest town has a population of 25. And so, that's my life. That's what I do. that. And being a rancher, obviously, my life revolves around that. The old statement about ranching and farming is the animals won't wait like that. And so the first thing I do in the mornings is get up, get everything squared away at the ranch, and then make a big pot of coffee and sit down and start writing. And I'm not a big one for looking out the windows, and waiting for the muse to strike. I'm a big one for that that famous London where he says, you don't wait around for inspiration, you go after it with a club. And I think that's probably true to my methods, I'd say.
Yeah, but given the show's popularity, do you find the show kind of affecting your writing? Like, do you write more visually, for example, or do you know that they're just going to change things up so it doesn't really affect you at all?
No, I really don't. I mean, because I was writing the books, for like 7 years, before, Hollywood ever found me. And I'll probably be writing the books long after Hollywood leaves me and moves on to something else like that. But no, I mean, it's basically two separate but equal universes, I think. There's the series of the books, and then there's the series of the television show like that. And they do have a lot of things in common, and they'll borrow things, from the books, bits and pieces. But one of the difficulties that they have is that, they're kind of limited by that 42-minute format that they've had, when they were on cable television. But now that the show's been picked up by Netflix, and they're filming now, like that, it'll be out, probably in the early fall. One of the things that, they asked Netflix right off the bat, they said, well, what kind of time limitations are we looking for as far as the episodes are concerned? And Netflix's response was, we don't care. The show can be, an hour long. It can be an hour and 20 minutes long. It can be an hour and a half long. We care. Do you need to do to make a good show? And that's kind of outrageous in Hollywood to have that kind of freedom to be able to do that type of filming like that. And so, I mean, each episode is going to have a good 20 more minutes of material. And, when you're talking 10 episodes, that's a lot of material. It's kind of wonderful to have that freedom.
Yeah, yeah. And so you're, you sell well now, but I wonder, just because every writer has an interesting story, how did you get your first book published?
I did it the hard way like that, and I don't even know if you can do that now. But basically, what I did was did a lot of cold calls, I guess, to a lot of agents. They're in New York, and took a week, and went to New York. I get knocked on all of these agents' doors like that, and the majority of the time it was like a Damon Runyon novel like that, where the cigar smoke would roll over the transom, and they would open the door, about maybe, about 6 inches, because the first draft for The Cold Dish, the first Walt Longmire novel, was about 650 pages long. It was like War and Peace in Absaroka County was what it was like. And I would slide that manuscript through the door, and I would hear, a voice say, "Sure, kid, we'll let you know." And I'm still waiting to hear from some of them. Evidently, they're slow readers like it. And but there was this one agent, who was absolutely magnificent, and she said, I'm not going to get a chance to read this very quickly, but I will read, and I will give you feedback on it. And so I was tickled to death. That was more than anybody else was, willing to do for me. And by the time I got back to the ranch, there was a phone call from that specific agent, and she said, "Don't give this to anybody else. I want it." And she's the one that took it and handed it off to Catherine Cord, the head of Penguin, and she's the one that sat me down and said, she had the manuscript sitting in front of her, and she said, "We would like some more of these." And I didn't quite understand. I said, "Well, I'm happy to write you guys some more books." And she says, "No, I don't think you understand. We would like some more of these. We think these characters, this place, that it's got legs, and people are going to want to know more about them and all of that." And that's when I, with the knowledge of not even having had one book published, started arguing with the president of Penguin USA, saying, "Oh, I don't think that'll work. I don't think that's a good idea at all. But I've got some other ideas I want to bounce off of you." And she said, "Why don't you go back to your ranch in Wyoming and sit down and think about this?" And so I did. And, the big answer was, well, do these characters have more stories to tell? And after I'd lopped off about, 250 pages out of The Cold Dish to get it published, I knew there were some more stories, because a lot of stuff, got cut out. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe there are, and maybe I should. And every day I get the emails from people like that, and meet people at bookstores and library events and all of that are, very pleased that these characters had more than one shot at it.
Yeah. And so now, having spent, quite a bit of time with those characters, Walt and Vic, and the rest of them, are those other ideas that you mentioned just a second ago, are those still like percolating in your head, or do you want to stick with these guys, or?
I've got some other things, that I've started, some other books, that I'm, working on like that. But I got to be honest and say, I'm having more fun writing the books now than I did when I started. Because after 10 years, I like to think that I'm a little bit, more knowledgeable about what it is that I'm doing. There's no guarantee on that, but I like to think that nonetheless. Like that. And so it's a little bit more relaxing to write the books. And the characters, they really just don't get old for me. I think that, one of the nice things is being, with a literary press like Viking Penguin, they give me a lot of freedom, to write whatever it is that I want to write about, or approach whatever issues, or, any kind of, things that I want to write about or deal with in the books. And, one of the dirty little tricks about my books is that the majority of the plots tend to come from newspaper articles, from up here in Wyoming and Montana, Colorado, South Dakota, like that. And, truth is stranger than fiction, and it's, some of the most wonderful ideas I get from, clipping out of these tiny little, newspapers in some of these tiny little towns. And I think what that also does is it kind of keeps the book grounded in a reality that, Western sheriffs kind of deal with. I mean, I don't ever want to write a book where Walt is on a cruise ship, or I don't want to ever write a book where Walt, is on a skateboard or something like that. I mean, I really want Walt dealing with the things that, Western sheriffs deal with. And that gives me a lot of freedom to approach a lot of different subjects and go in a lot of different directions. And everybody seems to be open to that. And so it's a wonderful environment to have as a writer.
Yeah, I think I told you last time we talked that I used to work at the Texas Book Festival.
Yes.
And we had you down there a few times, and
it's one of the few book festivals where you can wear one of these like that, and nobody looks at you funny,
Right. But one of the beauties of that job was that there was some downtime, when it wasn't happening. And so I went up to the state library, just like a few blocks from the festival office, and found this clipping, because as I mentioned, my family's from Big Spring, Texas, and there was this clipping from the early there's a state hospital there, and a woman, it just was this little bitty clipping that a woman had escaped from the state hospital. This was like 1963, flagged down a truck. The truck driver picked her up, and then she's never heard from again. Wow. So as a journalist, I thought, oh, I should investigate this. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to put that in a novel, I'm just going to imagine what happened, after that took place. So anyway, small town newspapers are really rich with great stuff. So
you need to write that book.
I know. I do. I know.
Sitting around here, doing interviews, and get your butt in a seat and start writing that book. That's right. My advice. Okay?
I know. Thank you. So last question for you. You do tour. You're not really at the point, it seems to me, where you have to. Why do you like to do it?
I don't know. I mean, yes, it might be force of habit. I don't know. I mean, I really enjoy the tours. I really enjoy, going out and meeting the people that read the books. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about it. I mean, I'm always thinking about all the authors that never got the opportunity to go out and and meet the people who were reading their books. Like, I mean, it's a wonderful thing like that, because they can tell you the things they like, the things they don't like. But that kind of interaction is kind of priceless to me. And they just enjoy the characters so much. I mean, I always there are two types of emails that I get after every book, and two conversations that I have with readers. Number one is, you beat up on Walt too much in the last book, and you need to take it easy on him on this next book. So that's number one. Like, and then number two, that there was not enough of my favorite character, insert name here. Whether it be there wasn't enough Henry, or there wasn't enough Vic, or there wasn't enough Lucian. I knew I'd gotten to a point whenever people started saying, what, there really wasn't enough dog in the last book. You need to get more dog in there, like that. And so, it's a continual process, but, I mean, I do lead a kind of an isolated life. I mean, generally, a writer, what we do is we sit in a room by ourselves, and type about our imaginary friends, and any right-minded society, you guys would lock the door and not let us out, is what you do. Like that. And the other part of that is that social part that I really enjoy, which is going out and meeting all of those people that read the books and going to all these wonderful events. It's an honor to be able to do it.
Oh, great. Well, thanks so much. as you know, I am the editor of Kirkus, and I used to do the Texas Book Festival, but I do this side job as the literary director of the San Antonio Book Festival.
Mhm.
So, and I'll write your publicist about it, but if you might consider joining us next April 2nd, we'd love to.
Of course I would. That's a beautiful place.
So yeah, it is, and a lot of great energy at that festival. So that's neither here nor there, but thanks for this. This was great, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Throw me an email about that pretty quick, though, because the calendar fills up really fast.
Okay.
So, you can get me the information about that, the better, because that way I can get it on the calendar. So
yeah, I can do
cool.
it.
It was great talking to you again.
Okay. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.